She's too pretty, Melissa hissed, snatching the invitation from my hand. You know it. She'll ruin every photo. I stood there stunned, my 12-year-old daughter blinking back tears beside me. But it got worse. The next day, Melissa sent a mass email to the entire family, claiming I was using Emily to steal attention, that I'd trained my daughter to outshine her. My own mother begged me to apologize, to the cousin who banned my child. That's when I stopped pleading, because Melissa didn't know I had every email, every voicemail, every receipt. She thought she could shame a child into silence, but I didn't raise a daughter to shrink. I raised one who'd one day watch her mother burn the truth into stone. And on Melissa's perfect wedding day, that stone hit like a wrecking ball. Wait until you hear what happened when I took the mic. My name is Laura Lawson, and I'm 45 years old. I spend my days in a comfortable rhythm of school pickups with my husband Daniel and our 12-year-old daughter Emily, making Sunday pancakes and sharing quiet evenings on the porch. My cousin Melissa, who's been staging perfect moments since we were kids, turned every family gathering into a competition. Her beauty pageant trophies against my debate medals, her Pinterest-worthy centerpieces overshadowing my simple arrangements. I've learned to handle her theatrical nature, just as our family has learned to applaud her performances. What they don't know is that I've saved every email, noted every slight, my steady voice carrying weight when tensions rise. Right now, I'm at the kitchen sink with citrus-scented soap on my hands, Emily humming over her math homework while my phone buzzes against the marble counter. But let me start from the beginning. I was wiping down the kitchen counter when my phone lit up with Melissa's name. Emily's piano scales drifted in from the living room, a peaceful Tuesday afternoon soundtrack that I didn't know was about to shatter. I dried my hands and picked up, expecting wedding details or maybe another critique of my RSVP handwriting. Laura, darling. Melissa's voice dripped sweet poison. I'm so glad I caught you. There's something delicate we need to discuss about the wedding. My stomach tightened. You know that feeling when someone starts a sentence too carefully? Like they're laying down cotton balls before dropping a brick? What's up, Melissa? I kept my tone light, matching her artificial cheer while reaching for the spiral notebook I keep by the phone. Old habits from my debate team days. Well? She paused for effect. I've been going over the arrangements with my image consultant, and we've hit a small snag with the guest list. Another pause. Emily can't come. She's too pretty. I actually laughed, certain I'd misheard. The piano scales stumbled behind me as Emily hit a wrong note, then resumed. I'm sorry, what? Oh, honey, don't make this harder than it needs to be. Her voice sharpened beneath the syrup. The wedding photos need to focus on me, and Emily would be distracting. You understand, right? You and Daniel are still welcome. Of course. My pen pressed hard against the notebook paper as I wrote, Tuesday, 3:47 p.m. Emily can't come. She's too pretty. Wedding invitation rescinded for child only. Let me make sure I understand correctly, I said, forcing each word through numb lips. You're uninviting my 12-year-old daughter because you think she'll look too nice in your wedding photos? When you say it like that, it sounds terrible. Melissa's laugh tinkled like breaking glass. I'm just trying to create the perfect day. Surely you can appreciate that? My heart hammered against my ribs, but I kept writing. Parents still invited. Reason given. Photos, aesthetic concerns. The ink bled where my hand shook. I'll need to discuss this with Daniel, I managed, breathing in the lingering scent of citrus cleaner to stay grounded. And I'd appreciate if you could send me an email outlining these changes for clarity's sake. Of course. I'll have my coordinator draft something appropriate. You're being so understanding, Laura. I wasn't being understanding. I was being tactical. Every fiber of me wanted to scream into the phone. But that's not how you win these battles. You document, you wait, you plan. After hanging up, I stood at the counter, letting Emily's resumed piano practice wash over me. One measure at a time, just like we'd handle this situation. I pulled out another notebook, the good one, leather-bound, and started drafting potential responses. Each version defended Emily while carefully avoiding any dramatic accusations that Melissa could use against us. Daniel found me there 20 minutes later, still writing. One look at my face and he knew something was wrong. I led him into the hallway, well away from Emily's practice session. Melissa just uninvited Emily from the wedding, I whispered. Says she's too pretty and might distract from the bride in photos. His face darkened instantly. She what? Even his whisper carried thunder. That's... Wait, I cut him off, touching his arm. Let's be smart about this. She's sending an email to confirm the changes. Once we have it in writing... He took a deep breath, shoulders dropping slightly. In 15 years of marriage, he'd learned to trust my longer game. You're right, but Laura, we can't let this... My phone pinged. We both stared at the notification. From Melissa Lawson. Subject, regarding guest list adjustments. Remember that sunny Tuesday afternoon? How clear everything had seemed before this moment? Emily hit a perfect scale on the piano, each note rising like steps to somewhere we couldn't see yet. I picked up my phone, Daniel's hand steady on my shoulder, and opened the email that would give us our first piece of evidence. The email loaded, corporate crisp and polished as a knife. My throat went dry as I scanned the first paragraph. Dear Laura and Daniel, after careful consultation with our event management team regarding brand cohesion and photographic balance, we must make certain adjustments to maintain the wedding's intended narrative. While we value your family's presence, we find it necessary to protect the bride's vision for her special day. Daniel's grip tightened on my shoulder. Brand cohesion? He muttered. She's talking about our daughter, not a marketing campaign. I kept reading, each word burning itself into my memory. Therefore, we regret to inform you that Emily, age 12, will need to be removed from the guest list. Our photography direction requires careful composition, and certain younger guests may create unintended focal points that detract from the ceremony's aesthetic balance. We trust you understand the importance of preserving the bride's narrative during this milestone event. The language was so sanitized, like they were discussing lighting fixtures instead of banning a child for being too attractive. My hands didn't shake anymore. They moved with precise purpose as I hit print, hearing the machine whir to life across the room. Watch Emily for a minute? I asked Daniel. He nodded, heading toward the living room where her piano practice continued, steady and unaware. In my home office, I snapped a photo of the printed email with my phone, making sure the timestamp was visible. The PDF went into a new folder labeled Wedding Evidence. Something told me we'd need a paper trail before this was over. Call it instinct, or maybe just knowing Melissa too well. I drafted my reply 3 times before settling on, Dear Melissa, I'm writing to ask you to reconsider your decision regarding Emily's attendance. While I understand your desire for a perfectly orchestrated wedding, excluding a 12-year-old child based on her appearance sends a deeply troubling message. Emily has been looking forward to celebrating with family, and this uninvitation risks causing genuine emotional harm. Please consider how this choice might affect not only Emily, but the broader family dynamic. Best regards, Laura. Measured. Professional. Every word chosen to highlight the real impact without feeding drama. I forwarded the entire exchange to Daniel's work email, and then, after a moment's thought, to Aunt Rose. If anyone could offer clear-eyed counsel about family politics, it would be Rose. The reply came so fast, my phone nearly buzzed off the desk. Laura, I'm disappointed you've chosen to frame this as an attack rather than understanding my needs as a bride. Since you've raised concerns about family dynamics, I've copied relevant family members so we can address this transparently. My decision stands. The wedding's aesthetic requirements are non-negotiable. Regards, Melissa. The CC list stretched long. My parents, Daniel's parents, 3 aunts, 2 uncles, and every cousin over 25. I reached for my water glass, trying to wash away the taste of copper in my mouth. This wasn't about transparency. It was about building an audience, controlling the narrative before I could even respond. My phone started vibrating like an angry hornet. Preview banners cascaded across the screen. Mom, Laura, please don't make this difficult. Uncle Jim, both of you need to calm down. Cousin Sarah, OMG, are you serious right now? The group texts multiplied, splitting into factions faster than I could track them. I set the phone face down, needing a moment to think. Through the wall, Emily's piano scales continued, each note perfect and precise, just like the evidence I'd keep collecting, one piece at a time. My screen blurred as messages flooded in. Cousin Brian's text jumped out first. Can't believe you're using your own kid to steal Melissa's spotlight. Low move, Laura. I blinked hard, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. Before I could respond, Aunt Lila chimed in. We all know Emily's a beautiful girl, but stage managing a child for attention? That's not the Laura I thought I knew. The accusations stung like paper cuts, small but sharp. I scrolled through message after message, watching Melissa's narrative take root and bloom. According to the family chorus, I was now the attention-seeking mom who couldn't handle her cousin's special day. My hands shook as I dialed Mom's number. The kitchen still smelled of the lemon cleaner I'd used that morning, when everything was normal, and my biggest worry was Emily's math test. Mom, I said when she answered, please tell me you understand how wrong this is. Laura, honey. Her voice had that careful tone she used when handling fragile things. Of course it's unfortunate, but you know how Melissa can be. She's always been particular. Particular? My laugh came out hollow. She banned my 12-year-old daughter for being too pretty. And that's not right, Dad cut in. They must have been on speaker. But Melissa can be vindictive when she doesn't get her way. If you push this, we just want peace in the family, Mom added quickly. Couldn't you and Daniel come without Emily, just this once? The betrayal settled in my stomach like cold lead. You want me to leave my daughter home alone so Melissa can have her perfect photos? She could stay with us, Mom offered. We'll make it special, a grandparent weekend. I ended the call before they could hear the tremor in my voice. The family tapestry was unraveling thread by thread, and I was expected to smile and snip along. Through the window, I watched Emily reading on the porch swing, her legs tucked under her just like when she was small. How do you tell your child they're uninvited from a family wedding for being too beautiful? Em, I called softly. Can you come to the kitchen for a minute? She looked up from her book, marking her place with careful precision. That's my girl, always mindful of details, never wanting to lose her place. At the kitchen table, I chose my words like stepping stones across troubled water. Honey, there's been a change with cousin Melissa's wedding. She's had to make some, adjustments to the guest list. Emily's green eyes, so like mine, searched my face. Because I'm too pretty? My heart cracked. Of course she'd heard the phone call. Yes, I said firmly, and that says everything about cousin Melissa and nothing about you. You are exactly as beautiful as you should be. She nodded, chin steady, but I saw the small collapse behind her brave expression, like a flower folding in on itself. It's okay, Mom, she whispered. I don't want to make trouble. I pulled her close, breathing in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo. Over her head, I opened my laptop and typed one final appeal to Melissa. Dear Melissa, before this goes any further, I'm asking you, not as a cousin, but as someone who once played dolls with me on Grandma's floor, to remember basic kindness. Emily is 12. She doesn't compete with you. She doesn't want attention. She just wants to celebrate with her family. Please reconsider. Laura. I hit send. No response came. The back door creaked. Daniel, carrying the folded chairs from the garage. We'd planned a family dinner tonight, all of us around the big table like always. Now it felt more like a tribunal, with sides being chosen and loyalty lines being drawn. Where do you want these? He asked quietly. The kitchen clock read 9:47 p.m. when Melissa called again. I'd just finished loading the dishwasher, finding comfort in the routine of stacking plates and measuring soap. anything to keep my hands busy and my mind from spinning. "Laura?" Her voice dripped with that artificial sweetness she'd perfected over years of getting her way. "I hope you've had time to process our discussion." My notebook was already open. These conversations needed documenting. "I have," I said, keeping my voice level. "And I still believe. Let me be crystal clear." The sugar vanished, leaving only steel. "If you make a scene about this, if you try to turn the family against me, you won't just be losing Emily's invitation. Your entire family will be barred from attending. Is that what you want?" My pen moved mechanically across the page. "If you protest, your entire family is barred." Timestamp 9:49 p.m. "Melissa," I said carefully, "are you threatening to uninvite Daniel and me if we object to our daughter being excluded?" "I'm protecting my perfect day. The choice is yours." The line went dead. I set the phone down like it might bite and gripped the edge of the counter. The lemon-scented cleaner I'd used earlier still hung in the air, but now it felt sharp, artificial, like Melissa's manufactured warmth. You know that feeling when something so absurd happens that you almost want to laugh? But the laugh gets stuck because you realize it's actually happening? That's where I was, standing in my kitchen, being strong-armed over a wedding invitation. I climbed the stairs quietly, needing to check on Emily. Her door was cracked just enough for me to see her curled up under her galaxy print comforter, the one she'd begged for last Christmas. Even in sleep, her cheeks were blotchy from crying. She'd tried so hard to hide her tears during dinner, pushing food around her plate and answering questions with brave little smiles that didn't reach her eyes. Standing there, I weighed my options like stones on a scale. Speak up, risk family chaos. Stay quiet, wound my daughter's spirit. Neither choice felt right, but one felt necessary. Daniel found me still at her door 10 minutes later. "Melissa called," I whispered, leading him back downstairs. In the living room, I showed him my notebook. His eyes, jaw tightened as he read. "She's lost her mind," he said, voice low but fierce. "We're not going without Emily. End of discussion." I felt something unclench in my chest, the fear, maybe, that I'd have to fight this battle alone. "We need to pause," I said. "No more late calls, no more arguments where Emily might hear. She needs peaceful nights more than we need answers right now." Daniel nodded, pulling me close. "Whatever you decide, I'm with you. But Laura?" He waited until I met his eyes. "Don't let Melissa bully you into silence. That's what she's counting on." The next day passed in tense silence. No calls, no texts, no family members playing mediator. Just the weird, stretched feeling of waiting for the other shoe to drop. It dropped at 8:15 p.m., right into my email inbox with a cheerful ping. Melissa's wedding newsletter, all pink borders and swirling fonts, promised a perfect day of dreams and destiny. There were detailed sections about the 5-tier cake, the imported flowers, the crystal-draped pavilion. Every paragraph sparkled with words like flawless and immaculate and fairy tale. I printed it, added it to my evidence folder, then walked to the kitchen calendar hanging by the fridge. The wedding date stared back at me, circled in red since the day Melissa announced it. 3 weeks, 21 days to decide peace or principle, family harmony or my daughter's dignity. Emily's piano practice drifted down the hallway, a simple melody she'd been working on all week, each note careful and clear. She never missed a lesson, never complained about practicing. Even now, in the middle of this storm, she was doing her best to keep going, to be good. I uncapped my pen and drew a second circle around the wedding date, pressing hard enough to leave an impression on next month's page. 3 weeks until the ceremony. 3 weeks until a decision that would reshape our family one way or another. Morning hit different after that call. You ever notice how doubt looks exactly like fog on kitchen windows? I stood there making chamomile tea, my go-to when sleep's been thin, watching steam crawl up the glass. Outside, the neighbor's sprinkler ticked through someone else's normal morning. My laptop sat open on the counter, cursor blinking in a blank email. Maybe if I apologized to Melissa, found just the right words to smooth things over. The family pressure was getting to me, I'll admit that. All those text messages about keeping peace, about how weddings make people crazy, about how it would all blow over if we'd just go along. I took a sip of tea, remembering how my mother used to say, "Sometimes being the bigger person means being the quieter one." The words felt different now, heavy with all the times women in our family had swallowed their pride to keep others comfortable. That's when Emily padded into the kitchen in her fuzzy blue socks, the ones with little stars on them. She looked small in her oversized sleep shirt, arms wrapped tight around herself. "Mom?" Her voice was barely there. "Am I ugly now?" The mug nearly slipped from my hand. "What?" "No, sweetheart. Why would you?" "Because if I'm too pretty for the wedding, maybe being ugly would fix it." She wouldn't meet my eyes. I could wear my old glasses instead of contacts, or maybe cut my hair really short. Something crystallized in me right then, hard and clear as diamond. You know that moment when you realize you've been asking yourself the wrong question? I'd been wondering how to keep peace, when I should have been asking how to keep my daughter whole. I set down my mug and pulled out my phone, scrolling to a number I should have called days ago. "Rose, it's Laura. I need your eyes on something." Aunt Rose had been teaching middle school for 30 years before retiring. She'd seen more drama and power plays than most political analysts, and she'd never once lost her compass. Plus, she'd been watching Melissa's performances since the girl was in pigtails. "Come over," she said. "Bring everything." An hour later, I was sitting at Rose's kitchen table, the same solid oak one that had hosted 4 decades of family conversations. The familiar smell of coffee and lemon squares wrapped around me like a hug. I'd brought my evidence folder, timeline notes, and the steady breathing pattern my running coach taught me for long hills. Rose adjusted her reading glasses, paging through Melissa's emails. See how she starts with, "My dearest Laura," but CC's the family on her response? Classic triangulation. She's not writing to you, she's performing for her audience. I nodded, tracking. The language changes too. First emails all corporate speak. Brand cohesion, photographic balance. Second one's pure victim narrative. "Because you didn't fold." Rose tapped the paper. "Look at the timestamps. She had that group email locked and loaded, waiting to see if you'd push back." We laid out the evidence like detectives working a case. The pattern emerged. Melissa's image control, the way she used family pressure as a weapon, how she built her narrative through carefully staged communications. "You know what this reminds me of?" Rose said, refilling our coffee cups. "Remember when she was 16 and uninvited Sarah Jenkins from her Sweet 16? Same playbook. The girl was too developed and might overshadow the birthday girl." I did remember. Sarah had transferred schools after that semester. "Here's what you need to understand, Laura." Rose set down her cup, eyes sharp behind her glasses. "Dignity is armor, not just yours, Emily's too. Every time we let someone shame us into silence, we hand them a blueprint for doing it again." My throat tightened. The family's going to take her side. Some will. The ones who always have. Rose stood up and walked to her office nook. "But they're not the only players in this game." She came back with a manila folder, sliding it across the table with a precision that made my pulse skip. "You'll want to see this name," she said. I picked up the folder, and there it was in crisp letterhead, Narrative Curation by Caroline Bennett. My fingers went cold. Caroline was notorious in our area for what she called social architecture, basically charging small fortunes to stage manage people's big moments. You've probably seen her work if you follow any local influencers. Those perfect proposal photos where everyone just happens to be wearing coordinating outfits. Those birthday parties that look more like magazine shoots. "Look familiar?" Rose asked, tapping one of Melissa's emails. I laid the documents side by side and felt my breath catch. The language was identical, not more, just similar, but word for word copied. Brand cohesion, narrative integrity, visual harmony. Reading Caroline's client materials was like having Melissa's email translated into its original language. Keep going, Rose urged. There's more. She was right. Caroline's premium package included something called narrative obstacle management. My stomach turned as I read the bullet points. Identifying potential disruptions, managing competing, aesthetics, strategic guest list curation. It was all there, spelled out in corporate euphemisms that couldn't quite hide the ugliness underneath. So this wasn't just Melissa being Melissa, I said slowly. This was a professional hit job, Rose finished. She hired Caroline to engineer her perfect bride story, and Caroline told her any beautiful young girl would be a liability to the visual narrative. I remembered the way Emily had looked this morning, trying to make herself smaller. They turned my daughter into a problem to be solved, a threat to be neutralized, Rose corrected, her teacher's precision coming through. But they left a paper trail. I spread everything across the table. Caroline's materials, Melissa's emails, my timeline notes. The pattern was so clear, it was almost beautiful, in a twisted way. Every move Melissa had made followed Caroline's playbook exactly. The initial private contact, the swift escalation to group pressure, the careful positioning of the target as an attention seeker. You know what this means? I asked Rose. She smiled. It means we have leverage. Caroline's whole business model depends on discretion. If people knew she was helping brides ban children from weddings for being too pretty. But how do we use it? I pulled out my phone's calendar. The wedding's in 2 weeks. Melissa's already got the family convinced I'm the villain. Simple. Rose handed me a notepad. We write a very short, very factual statement. Dates, quotes, nothing else. If anyone hands you a microphone, say, for a family reading, you'll have something ready. My hands were steady as I started writing. This wasn't about revenge or drama. It was about truth, plain and undeniable. I kept it under 200 words, just the bones. When Melissa called, what she said, the exact language from her emails, the connection to Caroline's consultation materials. No commentary needed. The facts were damning enough on their own. Perfect, Rose said when I finished. Now we just need the final piece. Documented proof that Caroline's working with Melissa. How do we get that? Rose picked up her phone. Remember my niece Katie, the one who did her marketing internship last summer? She smiled. Guess where she's working now? I felt a spark of hope, the first real one since this started. You think she'll help? I think she's had a front row seat to Caroline's methods for 6 months. Rose started typing a message. And I think she's about as fond of them as we are of what they did to Emily. 2 weeks. The countdown felt different now, less like a ticking bomb, more like a launch sequence. I looked at my notes, thought of Emily trying to make herself ugly, and knew we'd chosen the right path. One thing, Rose said as she set down her phone. No matter what happens, we keep our voices calm and our words simple. Let the truth do the work. I nodded, thinking of the quiet strength in Emily's eyes when she came to me with her hurt. Like mother, like daughter. 3 days after Rose made the call, my phone buzzed during Emily's piano practice. The message was brief, professional. Documentation available with signed NDA, delivery day of only, confidentiality essential. I set my phone down and let the piano notes wash over me. Bach's Minuet in G. Emily had been working on it for weeks. The simple melody felt like a counterpoint to all the complexity swirling around us. You know that feeling when a plan starts coming together? Not excitement exactly, but a kind of quiet certainty. That's what settled over me as I stood in front of my bathroom mirror that evening, practicing my delivery. On Tuesday, September 12th at 3:42 p.m., Melissa called to rescind Emily's invitation. My voice was steady, matter-of-fact. No emotional flourishes, no accusatory tone. Just the truth, laid out like pieces on a chessboard. I'd stripped every adjective from my script, every hint of judgment or anger. The facts would speak for themselves. The call, the email, the consultant's matching language. I practiced until the words felt worn smooth, like river stones. "How's it sound?" I asked Daniel that night, after running through it one more time. He was quiet for a moment, methodically folding laundry, something he did when he needed to think. "It's precise, clinical almost. But are you sure about this? The family fallout?" "I'm sure about Emily," I said, helping him match socks. "Everything else is just consequences." We worked in silence for a while, the soft thump of folded towels keeping time. "You've got my back," he said finally. It wasn't a question. "Always have." The next morning, I assembled what Rose called our insurance package. Email printouts, each one dated and annotated. The consultant's project brief, or at least the portions we'd confirmed existed. Notes about seating arrangements and photo wardrobes, all highlighting the systematic nature of the exclusion. I labeled every page with meticulous care, then scanned everything to a thumb drive small enough to fit in my clutch. Better to have backups. I'd learned that lesson from years of keeping family records. Remember when photos were actual photographs, not just digital memories? I thought about that as I organized the documents. There's something about physical proof you can hold in your hands. Something permanent. My parents called twice that week. Each time I gave them the same simple response: "We'll attend if Emily is welcomed." Nothing about our preparation, nothing about what we knew. Just that one clear boundary stated without drama or threat. "But Laura," Mom tried, her voice stretched thin with worry. "Couldn't you just—" "We'll attend if Emily is welcomed," I repeated, then changed the subject to her garden. Sometimes the hardest part of standing firm is doing it kindly. The automated wedding reminder popped up on my phone screen like something from another world. 1 week to perfection. All swirling fonts and sparkles, as if typography alone could mask what was happening beneath the surface. While I was still looking at it, the consultant's message arrived. "Materials prepared as discussed. Available for pickup morning of event only. Strict confidentiality remains. Essential." I showed the message to Rose over coffee. She nodded slowly, stirring honey into her tea. "Perfect," she said. "The timing actually works in our favor. Less chance of Melissa getting wind of it beforehand." "And if she does?" "Then we still have the truth," Rose said simply. "That's not nothing." I looked down at my notes, each page careful and clear. 1 week left, 7 days until all of this would either fall apart or come together. I thought about Emily practicing her Bach, each note precise and purposeful. Maybe that's what justice should sound like. Not a thunderclap, but a clear, steady melody played exactly as written. That final week, I focused on Emily. You know how kids can carry worry in their shoulders? I could see it in the way she hunched over her homework, the tension building like static before a storm. "Movie night?" I suggested that Monday evening. She looked up, surprised. "We usually save those for weekends, but sometimes rules need bending when hearts need mending." "Can we watch Pride and Prejudice?" she asked, already reaching for our worn DVD copy. It had been her comfort film since she was 9, though half the jokes still went over her head. "Of course. Want me to braid your hair while we watch?" That got a real smile. We settled into our ritual, her on the floor between my knees, me working gentle fingers through her hair while Elizabeth Bennet dealt with her own share of family drama. The familiar motions and dialogue seemed to ease something in both of us. "Mom," she whispered during a quiet scene, "is Cousin Melissa right? Should I try to look less?" My hands stilled for just a moment. "Beauty isn't something you dial up or down like a light switch, honey. Real beauty is how you treat people, and you've got that kind in spades." Every evening that week, we found small ways to strengthen her core. Board games that made her laugh, stories about women who changed worlds without raising their voices, quiet talks about what makes a person truly shine. Meanwhile, I ran through my own preparations like a pilot's pre-flight checklist. Rose and I met twice to confirm logistics, our heads bent over the church layout she'd managed to obtain. "You'll be here?" she said, tapping a spot near the front. Close enough to the lectern to reach it quickly when they ask for readings, but not so close that Melissa's watching you like a hawk. I nodded, mentally marking the distance. And you'll be 3 rows back, ready to nod when it's time. Rose had taught high school drama for 30 years. She knew timing like she knew her own pulse. We ran through every detail, when to stand, how to move, the exact moment to speak. No confrontations in the hallways, no matter what anyone said. No taking side argument bait. Just the clean, clear truth delivered with dignity. That Thursday night, I packed my clutch with surgical precision. Thumb drive in the inner pocket, printed packet folded just so, phone fully charged. I drove to the church parking lot and left 2 backup copies in the glove box of our car, sealed in waterproof bags. Maybe excessive, but I'd rather have insurance I didn't need than need insurance I didn't have. Friday evening, I ironed my dress. Simple navy blue, nothing that screamed for attention. Emily watched from my doorway as I hung it carefully. "You look worried," she said softly. "Just focused, honey. Sometimes doing the right thing takes a little extra concentration." She nodded like she understood, though I hoped she didn't. Not yet, not at 12. Let her keep some innocence about family politics a while longer. After she went to bed, I wrote her a note in my clearest handwriting. "You are never a threat to goodness." I left it propped against her breakfast bowl, where she'd find it in the morning. The rest of the night was details. Checking the alarm, laying out shoes, making sure Daniel had his timeline straight. "No matter what happens," he said as we turned out the lights, "I'm proud of how you've handled this." I squeezed his hand in the darkness. Some support doesn't need words. The alarm blinked 5:30 a.m., and I was already awake, watching dawn creep across our bedroom ceiling. Outside, the sky was turning the color of cold pearls, not quite bright enough to be silver, not quite dim enough to be gray. Wedding day. I thought about Melissa, probably already at the church, orchestrating her perfect production. About Emily, sleeping, peaceful down the hall, unaware of what was coming. About the small thumb drive in my clutch that carried such heavy truth. Time to get up, time to get dressed, time to find out if dignity really was the best armor after all. The church foyer hit me like a wall of perfume, lilies and hairspray competing for dominance, with an undertone of nervous sweat. You know that artificial calm before a storm? That's what it felt like, all forced smiles and whispered critiques behind program fans. I checked my watch, 9:47 a.m. The consultant's contact would be waiting by the catering entrance, just as Rose had arranged. I made my way past clusters of guests, nodding politely, but never stopping. No chance of getting pulled into conversation now. The catering corridor was quieter, just the distant clinking of coffee urns being set up. A woman in chef whites, Sarah, according to Rose's description, stood checking items off a clipboard. She glanced up as I approached. "Coffee service starts after the ceremony," she said automatically. "Actually, I'm here about the narrative documentation." The code phrase felt awkward on my tongue, but Sarah's posture shifted immediately. "Right." She reached into her clipboard and pulled out a manila envelope. "Everything's here. Project brief, wardrobe guidelines, seating chart revisions. The cover sheet shows payment details." Her voice stayed professional, but there was something like satisfaction in her eyes. Some of us weren't comfortable with how this played out. I took the envelope, resisting the urge to check its contents right there. "Thank you. This means a lot. Just..." Sarah hesitated. "Make it count, okay?" I nodded, tucking the envelope carefully under the program in my clutch. My hands wanted to shake, but I wouldn't let them. Deep breath in through the nose, out through the mouth. The same calming rhythm I'd taught Emily for pre-recital jitters. Emily. My chest tightened, thinking of her at home with Daniel, probably curled up with a book or working on her latest sketch. We'd decided together that she shouldn't come, not because she wasn't welcome, but because she deserved better than being a prop in someone else's drama. "Let me handle this part," I'd told her. "You just keep being your wonderful self." The sanctuary was filling up when I slipped back in. Melissa's photographer was directing her through a series of spontaneous poses near the altar, fixing her veil, laughing with bridesmaids, all carefully engineered to look effortless. The irony would have been funny if it hadn't cost so much. I spotted Rose in her planned position, 3 rows back on the left. She caught my eye and gave a tiny nod. Documents received, position set, timing confirmed. My pulse steadied. We weren't here for revenge or drama, just truth, spoken plainly. The organist started the prelude, and ushers began guiding people to their seats. I heard whispers as I took my place near the front. That's the one with the band daughter. And can't believe she showed up. Let them talk. I had facts in my clutch and calm in my spine. Melissa made her entrance right on cue. Every detail perfect, from her crystal-dusted veil to her precisely positioned train. She'd gotten what she wanted. All eyes on her, no competition, no distractions. The ceremony began with practiced precision. I waited through the welcome, the opening prayer, the carefully curated musical selection. My hand rested lightly on my clutch, feeling the slight weight of the envelope inside. Not yet. Not yet. The officiant stepped forward, his voice warm and practiced. Before we begin the exchange of vows, we invite a family member to share a brief reading. This was it. I touched the clasp of my clutch and thought of Emily's brave face at the kitchen table, asking if she was ugly now. Some things matter more than keeping peace. Let me tell you something about dignity as armor. It only works if you're willing to stand up straight and wear it. You ever notice how time slows down right before you take a stand? Like the world's holding its breath, waiting to see what you'll do with the moment. I stood, smoothing my dress more from habit than necessity. The short walk to the lectern felt like crossing an ocean, each step measured against the whispers and rustling programs behind me. Rose's words from our planning echoed in my head. Let silence do the heavy lifting. The polished wood of the lectern was cool under my fingers as I placed the printed page down. I'd rehearsed this enough times to know every word, but having it there felt like an anchor. The microphone picked up my steady exhale, not nervousness, just preparation. Good morning. I'm Laura Lawson, Melissa's cousin. My voice carried clear and calm through the sanctuary. I'm here to honor truth, because without it, we have no foundation for family. The rustling stopped. In my peripheral vision, I saw Melissa shift in her perfect pose, but I kept my eyes on the page. This wasn't about making eye contact or stirring drama. This was about letting facts speak for themselves. On Tuesday, April 12th at 3:47 p.m., I received this email regarding my 12-year-old daughter. I paused, letting the date stamp land. In the interest of brand cohesion and photographic balance, we must maintain strict control over the visual narrative. Emily's presence would create unavoidable distractions from the bride's carefully curated aesthetic. The silence deepened. I could feel it pressing against my ears like cotton wool. Someone coughed, the sound sharp as breaking glass in the stillness. The email continues. This decision is non-negotiable and aligns with our comprehensive image management strategy. Protection of the bride's narrative is paramount. I turned the page, movements deliberate and unhurried. The consultant's project brief was next, its corporate letterhead visible even from where I stood. On April 15th, the following directives were issued by Imperial Image Consulting, paid invoice number 2847. Another measured breath. Guest wardrobe selections must conform to approved palette and styling guidelines. Seating arrangements have been optimized to minimize visual competition. All group photography will exclude designated participants to maintain aesthetic consistency. A murmur rippled through the pews. I didn't look up to track its progress. The facts would do their work without my help. These documents confirm Emily's name was specifically removed from all photo arrangements and seating charts as of April 16th. I let that settle for 2 heartbeats. This is Melissa's language, not mine. The page felt lighter as I set it down, like truth has its own kind of weight that lifts when you speak it. I turned slightly toward the officiant, whose professional mask had slipped just enough to show surprise around the eyes. "Thank you for allowing me to share." I stepped back from the lectern, each movement still measured and calm. The carpet muffled my steps as I returned to my seat, but the silence in the room had taken on a different quality. Less cotton wool, more crackling electricity before a storm. That's when I heard it, the distinct sound of silk rustling against silk, followed by the subtle creak of a wooden pew. The groom's mother, elegant in her dove-gray dress, was rising from her front row seat. The collective intake of breath from 300 guests seemed to pull all the oxygen from the room at once. You know that feeling when you've set something huge in motion and all you can do is watch it unfold? That was me, gripping the lectern's smooth edge, my knuckles probably white, but I wasn't looking at them. I was watching ripples become waves across that sea of faces. The groom's mother had positioned herself halfway up the center aisle, her dove-gray dress catching the stained glass light. Around her, relatives in matching charcoal suits leaned close, their whispers urgent but controlled. Professional people used to boardroom crises, handling this one with the same precision. My steps back to the third row felt lighter than my walk to the lectern. Aunt Rose's hand found mine as I sat, and I noticed my pulse was steady. The calm that comes from knowing you've done what needed doing, and done it right. The whispers up front had structure now. The groom's mother spoke in low tones to the officiant, her gesture elegant but firm. The officiant nodded, turned to the groom, and had what looked like the world's shortest conference. I'd seen that same tight-shouldered posture in Emily's debate club tournaments, the moment when someone realizes they've lost on the facts. The groom turned to Melissa then, and I'll give him credit. He kept his voice down. But Melissa's face told the story better than any whisper could. "Remember how your mom's antique china looked that time the cabinet shelf gave way? That perfectly polished surface, cracking in slow motion while you watched? You'd think the room would have gotten louder as things fell apart, but it went the other way. The silence had teeth. We all watched the first bridesmaid, tall one, lavender dress, probably the college roommate, slip out through the side door like she was trying not to spook a nervous cat. 2 groomsmen followed, their designer shoes somehow soundless on the marble floor. I felt Aunt Rose's grip tighten just a fraction as the groom's father stood. Distinguished guy, silver at the temples, the kind of man who probably ran companies without raising his voice. He made this small gesture, nothing dramatic, just a slight lift of his hand, and his whole side of the church rose like a wave. Have you ever seen status crumble in real time? It's not loud or violent. It's more like watching a sandcastle dissolve when the tide comes in. One moment, it's there, all perfect, angles and fancy decoration. The next, it's just washing away. Speaking of washing away, that event coordinator who'd been hovering near the back wall, the one who'd spent 3 months coordinating Melissa's brand experience? She was speed-walking toward that massive sponsor banner now, her phone pressed against her ear like it was glued there. Even from where I sat, I could see the color draining from her face as she listened to whatever was coming through that receiver. I knew what that meant. The corporate sponsors Melissa had bragged about, the ones funding her fairy tale experience in exchange for social media exposure, they were about to discover that associating with this particular fairy tale might not be the marketing boost they'd hoped for. You know what's strange? In that moment, watching it all dissolve, I didn't feel triumph or satisfaction. Just this quiet certainty that truth, when you let it stand on its own, has a way of clearing the air. Like opening windows in a stuffy room. It's not about the drama of throwing them wide, it's about letting the fresh air do its work. The coordinator was just reaching for that sponsor banner now, her hands shaking slightly as she stretched toward the bottom corner. Behind her, the neat rows of guests had turned into clusters of murmuring confusion, like a garden party caught in an unexpected breeze. Emily would have said it looked like dominoes, not falling exactly, but swaying just enough that you knew the pattern was about to change. My daughter had always been good at seeing patterns. Turned out she'd inherited that from me, along with whatever beauty Melissa had found so threatening. I watched that coordinator's face go another shade paler as she kept nodding into her phone. And I knew. The financial foundation of Melissa's perfect day was starting to crack like thin ice in spring. The sponsor rep, crisp blazer, clipboard tucked like a shield, moved with the efficient panic of someone whose quarterly bonus just went up in smoke. She wasn't just taking down that step-and-repeat banner, she was erasing evidence. Each corporate logo disappeared like it was never there, folded away with hands that had probably practiced this exact damage control in nightmares. You know that moment in movies when the music stops and everyone can suddenly hear one conversation they weren't meant to? That's what happened when the catering manager's voice cut through the growing chaos. Payment, now, or we pack up. He wasn't shouting, but he didn't need to. The way he planted himself in that service doorway, invoice held out like a sword. It spoke volumes about previous discussions that hadn't gone his way. I'd seen that same stance from Emily's soccer referee right before calling a penalty shot. I kept my hands folded in my lap, watching Melissa's planner hover near her ear. The woman's whispers carried just far enough. Overages on the flowers, then a pause. Cancellation fees are non-negotiable. Another beat. Remaining balance due today. Each word landed like a pebble, dropping into still water, ripples spreading across Melissa's face. I'd never seen makeup that expensive go quite so ashen. Those studio lights she'd insisted on, the ones meant to catch her best angles, now just highlighted every micro-expression of dawning panic. Aunt Rose's fingers found my knuckle and squeezed, gentle but firm. The gesture said everything. Well done. Stay steady. Let it be. The air in there had gotten thick with perfume and tension. I stood, smoothed my dress, and walked toward the courtyard doors. No rush, no drama, just a woman stepping out for some air. Behind me, the murmurs swelled against stained glass like waves building offshore. The temperature drop hit like clarity. October had painted everything in watercolor, maple leaves catching late sun, hedges still green but thinking about gold. And there, just beyond the courtyard gate, stood my world. Daniel and Emily, right where we'd planned they'd be. Emily spotted me first. Her smile, God, that smile could light up a room without ever meaning to. She wore the dress we'd picked together, simple blue cotton that matched her eyes. The eyes Melissa had tried to ban from her perfect photos. A burst of color caught the sky then. Fireworks from some other wedding at the country club beyond the hedges. Emily's face tilted up, wonder replacing worry as red and gold sparks painted the clouds. I knelt beside her, grass cool through my stockings. You know what happened in there? She nodded, solemn but steady. You read her email, the mean one. I did. And you know what happened next? Another nod. Dad said people left. The important ones. That's right. I smoothed her hair, choosing words carefully. Melissa hurt herself today. When she tried to hide you away, she showed everyone who she really is. The groom's family saw it. The sponsors saw it. They all walked away. Like in debate club, Emily said softly, when someone loses because their argument isn't true. Smart girl. My smart, beautiful girl who never once used her light to dim anyone else's. Exactly like that. And now she has to pay for everything herself. All those fancy things she ordered to look perfect. No sponsors means no money. The sky bloomed again, silver this time, cascading like rain that never fell. I lifted Emily up, her feet leaving the ground as she laughed. The sparks reflected in her eyes, bright and clean and utterly free of malice. You see those fireworks, baby? They're not even for us. They're for someone else's happiness. And that's okay. They're still beautiful. She wrapped her arms around my neck, and I felt her understand. Heard it in her whisper. We don't have to steal light to shine. That's right, I said, setting her down as the last sparks faded. Because jealousy destroys its owner first.